Did you know this movie just came out recently? No? Close enough. Welcome back, Elemental. Elio is the brand new Pixar movie that's an actual interesting idea, but you know how they are under being labeled as a Disney brand. They barely marketed this thing within the past few months, despite it getting delayed multiple times. The trailers weren't all that great and didn't really do much to present itself in a unique fashion from other family-friendly sci-fi adventure movies. The only pieces of marketing I truly remember from this were the bloopers that were nice to see because Pixar hasn't done them in over 20 years since Monsters Inc. in 2001, but they didn't play during the credits of this movie, and they honestly were nowhere near as funny as A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, or Monsters Inc.'s takes, so that was disappointing. There was also this promotional drink called Elio's Glorp, which is an interesting title, and I'm gonna move on from there. Since I got to see it 2 days before it originally released, I figured I might as well briefly discuss this movie. Elio follows a titular 11-year-old protagonist whose life was affected for the worse after the death of his parents and is now going under the care of his aunt, who had to give up her aspirations of becoming an astronaut in order to raise him. After refusing to eat anything offered by his aunt, Elio wanders into the exhibit of the Voyager 1 spacecraft, where it sparks his interest in trying to discover other forms of life in outer space. This continually fails as he starts to get into trouble for skipping class and getting into fights with bullies, so his aunt sends him to boarding school in hopes to change him a little and improve his life and happiness. One night, an alien ship shows up for real and abducts him, much to his delight, where he's taken to the Communiverse, a place where all the universe's greatest leaders from other galaxies meet and share knowledge from their respective origins. Elio is mistaken as the leader of Earth and goes through with the lie when he feels a sense of belonging and home, and wants to help the leaders make peace with the film's antagonist, Lord Grygon, a leader who was rejected by the Communiverse and is so focused on taking it by force that he forgets the needs for his son Glorden, who isn't ready to give up being a kid and become a war machine, and he ends up befriending Elio upon meeting him, and both form a strong bond over their struggles. Let's start by addressing the easiest thing to praise in this movie: the animation and visuals. This is something Pixar has been absolutely knocking out of the park ever since 2006, with photoreal visuals, perfect amount of lighting and depth to the character models, as well as the environments. The last Pixar movie that had a space setting was WALL-E in 2008, and that captured its essence and feeling beautifully and realistically, despite being a movie about robots. Here, they really do capture the spirit of the military base setting in an incredible way, which is a touching factor considering this movie was inspired by one of the directors of the film, Adrian Molina's, childhood growing up in a military base. This movie's main setting, the Communiverse, is probably my favorite one in the movie, as the entire ship is basically the size of the galaxy, with an incredible variety of environments within it. Even if I'm not a fan of most of the aliens, I really like their designs as well, including characters like Glorden, who kind of has an almost Stitch-like appeal, where his design is simple, but it's just so charming in a way that really adds to his already likable personality. The score is also a home run and really accompanies every scene, whether it's exciting, suspenseful, somber, etc. Of course, though, the main reason you go into a movie isn't necessarily for the visuals, but rather for the writing/story, which I'm proud to say is pretty good. Elio is a really great protagonist. Despite only being a child, he can still be very relatable, as it is very easy to sympathize with the pain of not only losing his parents, but also feeling like an outcast from society in a way that doesn't feel like every other cliche underdog/outcast story out there. I love the decision of having him be excited to finally be recognized and captured by the aliens, rather than him being scared and realizing it was a mistake on impact. Him going on a character arc of actually thinking about whether he truly belongs on Earth or the Communiverse is a little bit predictable at times, but it's still compelling at the end of the day, and it really does make the family dynamic with his aunt really emotional as well, as she tries her best to not only adjust to her tragic change in life, but also just trying to make sure her nephew is happy and healthy and getting along with society. His friendship with Glorden is also really adorable and even emotional towards the end, as it not only gives Elio someone to build character off of, but Glorden himself itself is not only extremely adorable, but his arc of trying to connect with his dad and get him to understand what he truly wants in life is also really emotional, and their relationship has a moment during the climax that really did make me feel. Speaking of Gordon, wow. I really love this character. When watching the trailers, I was nervous he was going to be the cliche, annoying sidekick with lame jokes in order to appease the kids as much as possible and be marketable and whatnot, but he was easily one of my favorite characters in the movie. He's just so full of whimsy, and that's perfect as he gives Elio all the things he thought he could never regain after his parents died, and it really makes his more vulnerable moments really hit hard, especially when it comes to the struggles of trying to connect with his dad, who isn't one of the most memorable Pixar villains, as he isn't really present all that much until the middle and end of the movie, but he still has some really good moments towards the end that make him a serviceable villain in my opinion. That kind of brings me to my only few issues I have with this movie. Aside from the kind of underdeveloped villain, none of the other aliens aside from Gordon are really that memorable. I can't even remember any of their names after watching it. I get that they are side characters, but most of them are honestly just really forgettable. Like, you can take them out of the movie and honestly nothing would change. The humor in this movie is also rather tame and isn't really funny for most of the time, which isn't really a big deal as this isn't a comedy film per se, but I still wish they put a little more thought into the jokes whenever they came up. However, my biggest issue with this movie and what kind of drags it down for me a bit is the communiverse and how it doesn't really get fleshed out, which I say is a problem because that's the location we spend most of this movie in. While it is a beautiful looking location, like I said before, most of its environments don't really get explored all that much, and I know that was kind of the case with a movie like Zootopia with all the different areas, but they still presented enough to at least make the audience understand them a lot. Maybe if this movie ever gets a sequel, this location could be expanded upon even further, but it doesn't ruin the movie for me because everything else about it is still really solid. And that is Elio in a nutshell. It may not be a top-tier Pixar movie, nor is it as great as some of Pixar's best original movies this decade, like Soul and Luca, but it's still a great Pixar movie overall, as it has the elements that make the studio so beloved and iconic to begin with, such as a heartwarming and wholesome story, breathtaking visuals alongside a fantastic score, good enough world building, and a really strong emotional core that makes it an enjoyable film for the whole family. A solid 8 out of 10. It's really unfortunate that this movie might not do so well because the marketing for it wasn't that good, but please, by all means, I really do recommend you go at least give this movie a chance, because you never know if you're gonna end up actually enjoying it, or it might not be your cup of tea by the end, but at least you did experience something original. And hey, let's show Pixar that we don't need 10 more Toy Story films. Alright, what do you guys think? Do you agree with any of my takes? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more reviews and analysis videos on movies, TV shows, video games, and more. And remember to keep calm and let life carry you on.